guys, welcome back to another episode of Reaction Time presented by Fareway. Post Cyhawk. Another loss in the books, unfortunately.
Yeah, just 20 in a row.
21-15.
Yep. Which was really close to my prediction.
Hey, I wonder how the
Which
sports
counts for
bettors
something,
did.
right?
I wonder how many people actually bet on wrestling.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I would be interested.
Chris
to know.
definitely did.
Did he?
Yeah, because the spread was like 13.5 or something like that, which was a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chris did put money on that while we were out in Vegas.
I texted him once we got settled at Carver, and I was like, I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this. Suddenly, like once I was in Carver, I was like, ooh, all my positive feelings went away. And he was like, don't worry, I'm going to place a bet for the both of us. And yeah, I'm sure it was Iowa winning by whatever. I wonder what he did. We should ask him. But yeah, 20 straight.
Yeah.
And what is it like? That's 18 for Brands.
Yeah, Brands has never lost to Iowa State.
God, if he wasn't so unhinged, I would love to know his thoughts on like, how does that feel? Mm-hmm. Like truly, like what's preparation like? You know, he really made sure to let us know he wasn't, what was it? Downplaying it?
Downplaying. Yeah, he used a different word, but yeah, downplaying essentially.
Whatever it was. But I mean, honestly, we have, you've a little longer than me, but I think this was the most unhinged post press conference I've sat in for Brands.
Yeah, I think ever since the gambling thing went down last year, and he went on several tirades about the media when that was all going down, saying that the media needs to get to the bottom of this, blah, blah, blah. And like, to an extent, true. Like it'd be nice to have really good investigative journalism, but also it's a lot harder than that.
Yeah.
So I think ever since then he's had different responses to questions. Like he's always been a little bit unhinged. We've known that.
Right.
But yeah, he was in rare form
Yeah.
this last week.
And it's always so weird to me because it's like you're walking out of these winning and you're still so mad. What are you mad about?
Well, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4 matches.
I just like when he yelled from the back of the room to anyone who didn't watch this, Angelo Ferrari was answering questions. He was asked like, what do you need to work on?
Yep. What specific? Because Angelo said, yeah, I'm going to be working on a few things to try to get better during his red shirt or whatever. And the reporter asked the very natural follow-up of, oh, what are those things? And Tom yells from the back room, don't answer that. It's like, oh, okay.
It's like, that's why I'm here. I was like,
yeah, protect my guys. I'm just like, protect them from what?
From
That's a fair
what?
question. So
I was just sitting there and I was like, thank God I cover Kevin Dresser.
just a little bit different of a personality.
Yeah, very, very different. But anyways, Carver.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that the atmosphere was not as fun as it was last time.
Agreed. I wasn't there the last time that they wrestled Iowa State. I was there 2 times ago, 3 times ago. One of those two, probably both. I don't remember. Yeah, both. So yeah. And it wasn't like it normally was.
Yeah, it
for
was
a Cyhawk
weird.
duel. Like it got loud a few times, but my ears never hurt. There was only like one let's go Hawks chant. It wasn't a deafening chant either. So there was only a handful of people yelling stalling. Normally it's from the first whistle, people just yell stalling. So yeah, it was still a
Great crowd.
a phenomenal wrestling environment.
Sellout.
Truly phenomenal wrestling environment. Also not as good as it has been.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because there wasn't
As much
know.
pre-hype and
Yeah.
like, I mean, I was going to say maybe because it wasn't that close, but it was close. Like there's a time when Iowa State was winning.
Yeah.
Going into the intermission, Iowa State was up. So like there was plenty to be motivated about as a fan. Like, okay, we got to get our guys back in this. So yeah, I don't know. It's again,
Weird.
still a phenomenal environment.
Oh yeah.
Really, really good,
Yes.
but not traditional Cyhawk level.
Yeah, it was weird. It was very weird, but you know, fun to be back. Fun to be in a big wrestling crowd. So whatever. Anyways. like we said, 21-15, Adrian Meza, Zach Redding, Paniro Johnson, and Younger Bastida got the wins of the day. Unfortunately, Paniro's came from injury default, but the other three won their matches. What were your biggest takeaways walking out of Carver?
Biggest takeaways, it was good to get Younger Bastida back on the mat. You could tell it was his first match back. He was gassed by the end of that second period. And I think that affected how he wrestled him. He still beat number 13 Ben Keeter 7-2, so like good win, but not quite as dominant as you'd expect if Younger had wrestled some matches before and was had his lungs with him. So that was good. Other takeaways, Aiden Riggins, I think, is probably not the guy that I was hoping he would be at 174. He's now 0-3. He had two closer losses to start the season. Couldn't quite finish them out. And then this one, I think he took one shot relatively early in the first period, and then everything went south. He ended up losing that match 19-4 by tech fall against Patrick Kennedy, who is a good wrestler. Patrick Kennedy's good. And Kevin Dresser said after the match, like, Aiden Riggins is like a baseball player in the middle of an 0-for-20 slump. He can hit, he can get takedowns, to complete the analogy. He can hit, but for some reason there's a mental block in his way where he's just not getting it done. Yeah. So Aiden Riggins, that was a really tough match to watch. We saw Christian Carroll, again, sort of similar to Riggins, very different, but sort of similar in the fact that Christian Carroll got in on a leg and he tried to hit Steve Buchanan's thigh to take him down, to take his leg out from under him. And when Steve Buchanan essentially just didn't budge, I think Christian Carroll panicked a little bit, because I'm guessing against everyone else he's ever wrestled, that it results in a takedown. And against Steve Buchanan, it didn't. And then you could just see Christian Carroll kind of back up the whole rest of the match. And he ended up losing that match 10-0, got ridden out in the second period. So I think that's going to be a great learning moment for Christian Carroll. This is what a top 1 or 2 guy feels like. Steve Buchanan's ranked number 2. I think he beat Younger Bastida back when Younger was at 197 2 and maybe 3 times. Steve Buchanan is very, very good. So it's not a bad loss for Christian Carroll, but it's definitely one that he's going to need to learn from if he expects to compete at a top 10, top 5, top whatever level. And then Anthony Etchemendia against Kyle Parco. Coach mentioned this. I 100% agree with him. Anthony out-wrestled Kyle Parco. 100%. He's the only one that got a takedown in the dual meet. But an escape, 2 escapes, a technical violation for locked hands, and then an illegal cutback was the difference. So that's 2 escapes and 2 penalty points, and you lose the match 4-3. Like, that sucks. Anthony wrestled better than him, but freestyle got the better of him, especially on that legal cutback. Because, you said it, I'll let you say it in the tunnel, that Anthony was like, no, in freestyle, that's a thing.
Yes.
So.
He was in the hallway, in the tunnel, whatever that space is. And I caught him as he was talking about how in Cuba that wouldn't have been called. So I think it might've just been, one of those unfortunate moments where you can kind of confuse the styles and make a mistake that you can't really make in folk style, unfortunately. So, and like we were talking about earlier, if it had been something just out of pure stupidity, essentially, Dresser would have said something, and he didn't. So that tells me that truly it was a moment where Anthony didn't realize he was doing something he would get called for. And it's just unfortunate that he loses the match like that, because like you said, 100% he wrestled better. He should have won that match. And Parco celebrating after at the end of it, I know I try to be as unbiased as I can be, but it was just annoying, because it's you didn't win shit, in my opinion, if you want my honest answer on that. But I like Kyle Parco, no hate, but it was just a frustrating way to see that match go when it was supposed to be all about the wrestling. So
yeah. And then my last thing is Evan Frost losing to number 9 Drake Ayala 11-7. Again, really close match. Ayala just had more in the gas tank, which is something that we never said about Frost last season. Frost made his name with his gas tank. He would be winning 5-2 in the third period and then suddenly win by major decision 13-3 or something. it's like, oh, wow, that escalated quickly in that third period because Frost just had such a big gas tank. And Dresser said it. He addressed it after the dual meet. Frost is doing better with his weight. He's like got that whole thing under control. But I think that first week when it got out of control, he's still feeling the effects of that. So that's really unfortunate because if he didn't let his weight go out of control that first week, I think we're seeing a different Evan Frost with a different record. So that one was unfortunate. But hopefully later in the season, as Frost gets his gas tank back, we can see what we saw last year from him.
I find it so frustrating, and I'm sure the coaches are even more frustrated to just see these like guys having these issues. I really like Evan Frost. I was having so much fun watching him in March, especially in that match against, gosh, I'm blanking on his name, Oklahoma State.
Oh, Dayton Fix.
Like, I really enjoyed watching him compete, and it's just frustrating for him to come off such a like high of a season and then start it struggling because of details. I find that really frustrating, but whatever. Coach does not seem too concerned. It seems it's something Evan is cleaning up and should be fine. I don't anticipate it being something we'll even be talking about come January.
No.
But I just find it very annoying. I think my biggest takeaway outside of the things that you shared was Connor Uten. He was so fun for me. He went up against number 2, Michael Caliendo, and unfortunately he got injured, seemed to be his knee. I can't even remember right now, to be honest with you, what exactly happened.
I think he was getting an escape, and Caliendo pushed him just to make, and that happens a lot. When a guy's getting an escape, you push him away from you just to make sure they don't turn around and do something dumb.
Yep.
So he pushed him away, and from what I remember, Uten stepped kind of hard. And when he stepped hard, it seemed like his knee popped, and he writhed in pain for a little bit, kept wrestled really well. And
yeah, he fought his way through it. Unfortunately, lost 12-7. Still kept it to a decision, though.
Got a takedown.
Yeah.
Had really heavy hips.
I was going to say, he was just out. The moment that whistle, oh my gosh, the whistle blew, he was just on him. He was so quick to start the action. He looked not afraid. He did not look afraid at all. It kind of just pieced together the way everyone's been telling me that he's the sleeper. He's like, he's the one you need to pay attention to. And I can see why. That's exactly what I want to see out of a wrestler, is the moment that whistle blows, attack. Unless it's like one of those matches where, kind of like Jacqueline and Pinheiro, they were feeling each other out. I get what they're doing. It's a strategy. I get it.
Yep.
But it's fun to see Connor in this position where he's young. He doesn't know Michael Caliendo. At least I don't think they've ever.
I don't think they've wrestled. I'd be pretty surprised if they had.
So it's just like nice to see him just fearlessly, throw it all in there. You're not favored. So what do you have to lose? And so that was really fun. It's unfortunate he got hurt. Hopefully it isn't too bad. What was it? Dresser said, I'm not the MRI doctor or something. So we'll have to wait and see what ultimately how bad his injury is, but he implied it was bad enough he might have to sit out a little bit.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he's not at if he doesn't compete at Cliff Keen.
I would agree. Yep.
So, but I was really excited to see what he showed in those few minutes before he got hurt. So that was one of my bigger takeaways. Was I'm very excited for him, and I'm excited to see what happens there. We can get into it, lineup predictions, but those were my thoughts outside of yours.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Do you want to get into the lineup?
Let's get into the lineup. I think that was Dresser's biggest thing from the post-dual press conference. So let's tackle it.
He basically made it very clear what you saw on Saturday is not what you're going to see moving forward. So that leaves, that leaves us to question, okay, so what are we going to see? Ben, tell us what you're predicting.
Yes. So my prediction is based off of what Kevin Dresser said. And he said, our lineup will look very different once we get guys like Kyson Terrakina, MJ Gaitan, and Cody Chittum back in the lineup. So we're going to take each one of those individually and go from there. So Adrian Meza is a true freshman, has wrestled very well. He beat number 27, Cale Peterson, 5-1 to open up the dual meet. Freshmen get 5 events that they get a wrestling attached before they burn the red shirt. So he technically has one more. But it sounds like coach wants to preserve that red shirt. I'm interested to see who gets sent to Cliff Keen. If it's Adrian Meza, that's going to be his 5th event. And if he wrestles really well, I'm wondering if the coaching staff decides to burn his red shirt and say, you're the guy.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they're just dead set on redshirting him and Kyson goes to Cliff Keen and we see what Kyson can do as a senior. But Dresser seems to think, at least as of post Cyhawk, that Kyson would take over for Adrian Meza. MJ Gaitan has been a topic of conversation on this podcast because he was going down to 65 to compete with Connor Uten, and it was always my assumption that he'd just win that because I had seen MJ Gaitan all last year. Big move guy, likes to pin people, had some really good wins. But then Uten comes along, he's like, hold on, he's really good at wrestling. So MJ, it sounds like, is bumping back up to 74, and maybe they do a wrestle off with Aiden Riggins. But I would imagine that MJ Gaitan wins that spot back, which is the spot he wrestled all of last year, the spot that he got a lot of those big pins. He could clearly wrestle at that weight. I think he has more upside than Aiden Riggins. I know he has more upside than Aiden Riggins, just with his pinning ability. But even his floor is probably higher than Aiden Riggins, I think. So I think that's interesting. And then the most interesting one is Cody Chittum.
Right.
Because when we talked to Coach Dresser 2-3 weeks ago, he's like, Cody Chittum got a concussion. We'll be redshirting him. It's like, oh, dang, that's too bad. We liked watching him. Important to note, that was before Casey Swiderski got hurt. Mm-hmm. So I think the Casey Swiderski injury changed a few things. And my prediction is going to be that Anthony Echemendia moves down to 141 from 149. Panero Johnson moves down from 157 to 149, which is the weight that he wrestled at 2 years ago when he was a freshman in Iowa State's lineup. And then Cody Chittum slots in at 157, which is where he wrestled last year. So I think that's super exciting for a lot of different reasons. One, you get Anthony Echemendia back at 141, which is the weight he was an All-American at last year. You get Panero and Cody Chittum in the same lineup, which I love. Those are two guys who wrestle very differently, but they both throw it out there. I think the thing that I'm most excited about is Iowa State is going to have a lineup of guys who aren't afraid. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, like we know for a fact Anthony Echemendia is not afraid of anybody, and he's going to throw it out against everybody. Mm-hmm. Panero Johnson, nobody loves him more than himself.
True.
Which I mean that the best way possible, but Panero Johnson loves Panero Johnson, and he believes in himself, which is great. Cody Chittum, I'll let you touch on this, but seems to already have established himself as somewhat of a team leader. Mm-hmm. And I think that's always a great thing to have in your lineup. And we saw it last year. He's going to throw it out against guys. Like he beat Ja'Cory Teamer straight up last year. Mm-hmm. He will try to do things. He will not just stand there and hand fight and maybe shoot one shot. He's going to go after it. Same with MJ Gaitan. MJ Gaitan tries to pin everybody. Does he end up on his back sometimes? Sure, he does. But he's not going to wrestle a boring match. He's not going to wrestle afraid. And I think that's super exciting to get into a pretty young and fun lineup.
I think that's what gave Iowa State the edge they had last year, because you had consistent David Carr and Younger and Anthony, who really good at wrestling, just very technical.
Casey Swiderski.
Yeah, like you're seeing what you see is what you're getting, and people like David and Anthony, and one Younger too, they know where they can entertain while still protecting their sound wrestling. Then you throw in Chittum and MJ, who are psychotic and just do whatever feels right in the moment. It just gave them an edge. And after watching the team that wrestled Saturday, you didn't have that. You didn't have that at all. So it was just, I think that's why maybe it also didn't feel as such a like heightened Cyhawk, because we didn't have the guys in the lineup who give that to you.
Yeah.
Like Panero, like you said, if it was if this was wrestled in February, I think he would have been talking so much smack. I mean, he stuck his tongue out after he got his hand raised, but like, it's just first big match since returning to the lineup. And that's kind of really it, right? And Anthony, also really fun, but he's more, I don't know, he's not as like, what would you say? Like he's flashy, but in a different way.
He's not as showy.
Yeah.
Like when he picks someone up and slams him down, he doesn't make a big deal out of it. He's like, I was supposed to do that.
Yeah. And it just, I need that. I miss that. I think that's why Connor Newton was my favorite thing about Saturday, because he was just like hellfire within 2 seconds. And so, yes, when it comes to Chittum, he weighed in on Saturday. So that's kind of
warmed up, weighed in.
Yeah, that threw us off since the last we had heard about Cody Chittum. Coach said that they were going to redshirt him or not. Yes, redshirt him because they had done some testing. They talked to some professionals about just concussion protocol, and it seemed to be the decision that made sense. Well, now it seems that decision doesn't necessarily make sense in terms of the lineup. My guess is Cody Chittum didn't want a red shirt if you think about the way that he is and how much he loves wrestling. And it was nice to see him out there, and he was chirpy. I tweeted this, but when they went to shake hands, Ja'Cory was being a little feisty. And by feisty, I mean he was just kind of being a little arrogant. Like, he was taking his sweet time to walk to the center of the mat. And I watched Cody kind of like yell at him to hurry. And I thought that was so funny. But then you also like watch him on the mat side. So what Ben's referencing is when Aiden Riggins was wrestling, it was Chittum that was losing his mind in the corner. And it was Chittum who was waiting for him at the end of his match and was like yelling at him to hurry over, and like very much like what you would see. Brett Metcalf does this a lot. When Metcalf has a specific guy he's taken under his wing and something happens or he needs to talk to them, you'll see him by the tunnel waiting for them, and he's yelling and he's kind of scurrying them to go talk to them. That's what Cody Chittum was doing. So that tells me he's taking on a leadership role in that room that we haven't necessarily talked about yet. And like you said, that's huge, especially when you lose David Carr. Like, that's a huge leader in your room that's now gone. So I thought that was a very interesting thing I saw from being down on the floor, but I want Cody Chittum.
Yep.
I said that at the beginning. I don't want him to not be in this lineup just because he is such a wild bag of tricks that even Dresser has said cause him a little stress. So I want him out there. I want MJ in this lineup. I want him at 174. I know he wants to be at 165, but from what we've heard, it sounds like Connor's won the wrestle off every time.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I see why. How he wrestled Michael Caliendo, I see why he's won that wrestle off. It makes a lot of sense. And what I'm excited about with potentially introducing both Cody Chittum and MJ Gaitan back in the lineup is I think that helps someone like Christian Carroll.
Yeah.
Because we've seen Christian Carroll do some crazy things in the couple matches he's wrestled, but he seemed, and I have not talked to Christian, I do not know this, but it seemed like from where I was sitting, he froze up a little bit against Stephen Buchanan. That's not something that we've seen from Christian Carroll or MJ Gaitan. So I think having them in the lineup, seeing what they do, I would hope that gives Christian Carroll the confidence to be like, oh, I can throw it out there too. I've done weird things like that, some crazy athletic things like that. Let's throw it out there and do it. Because like I said, he did go for that one takedown in the first period, but when it didn't go well, boy, he froze up a little bit and he got ridden out, which again is a freshman thing to happen, especially against a good guy like Stephen Buchanan. So, yeah, I was just kind of hopeful. I am kind of hopeful that having those two guys in the lineup gives Christian Carroll some confidence to be like, oh, I can do these things. And because we've seen how talented he is. Like, he's going to be a very, very good wrestler.
Yes.
Just got to get that confidence going a little bit. And I'm hoping introducing these two guys back in the lineup helps with that.
Well, it reminds me of, and I think it may have been David who said it was really difficult for him to be at the place he was in the lineup because he wanted to be out there to see Chittum and MJ, because it's like he would watch Chittum go and do all the really crazy stuff, and then he'd have to go and wrestle and hurry back so he could watch MJ. So it's like those two guys do impact the lineup. It does impact them. We saw that. I mean, the guys talked about it all season with us last year about how much it encouraged them that the guy before them or the guy after them was going to go do XYZ. Saturday was a little defeating in that not very many good things were necessarily happening. And I think for people who maybe weren't paying close attention or maybe a little more casual, Ja'Cory Teamer injury defaulting was huge. It swung momentum towards Iowa State. And if they had the guys in a little better position, if they had maybe MJ in instead of Riggins, they could have won this duel. Like, I think that's something we haven't really talked about or anyone's talked about. And it's a hypothetical, but Iowa State could have won that duel. 100%. That injury default was huge. And that's why apparently Iowa fans were booing. I'm not going to lie, I kind of zoned that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the Iowa fans booing after the teamer defaulted. And I really hope that they were not booing teamer because it's very clearly a pretty serious injury. And Brand said as much afterward. He's like, our locker room was like a morgue during the intermission. He's like, Coach Terry was trying to fire everybody back up. So like, it was a real injury. And I don't think Iowa fans are booing the injury.
Yeah.
But that was weird and interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry. Another thing going back to the duel, that's from the duel.
Ahead.
Angelo Ferrari wrestling in place of Gabe Arnold.
The dramatics.
Brand's always got to do that at least once just to throw true freshman out there, super highly rated, super highly touted. And I mean, he did the same thing with Gabe Arnold last year. That's crazy.
Do you think this was actually planned like a few days in advance, or do you think they decided that day?
So if you believe them, they'd say it's decided that day.
Okay.
The skeptic in me believes it was planned a while ago.
Okay, because I was trying to read Angelo when he answered the question of when he found out, and I couldn't tell if he was lying or not.
So he's like, when I found out, I told my parents.
Right, like you had time to tell them.
Yeah. So when was that?
I don't know.
So.
And I liked how Dresser was like, oh, he's better than I thought.
Yeah.
Like a humbling moment. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Evan Bachman, same thing. Just kind of like froze up from the let it loose. And
he took some shots, but they weren't deep committed shots.
Yeah, he just could not get to his offense. Yeah. And I don't know if it's maybe it's because of the environment. Maybe it's because it's a Cyhawk. Maybe it's because you didn't know it was going to be Angelo. I don't know what it is. They just kind of froze up.
Yeah.
And that was very frustrating to watch. I think my face showed all my emotions. And I hate doing that just because I don't want to do that. I want to be as unbiased as I can be in any scenario. But I was very frustrated just because I love upper weights. I think they're always really fun, especially as heavyweights have changed what a heavyweight looks like. I feel like that's also changed 84 and 97. And we just got like nothing.
Yeah.
Like the most we got was when Iowa fans were hopeful that Ben Keeter could get a takedown on Younger and he couldn't. And that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that was, yeah. He had a cradle locked up. So shout out to Ben Keeter for locking a cradle up.
I know.
But couldn't quite flip Younger to his hip or anything. So,
well, they should not look forward to the rest of the season because if Younger managed to get the 7-2 fight off any type of takedown, it's going to be worse if they face off against each other in March.
It will be.
So, but I'm curious when we start to see this. I bet Cliff Keen will be a really big test for some of those people he wants to move around. Mm-hmm. They have a few weeks now to whoever needs to start cutting weight can start cutting weight. AKA, is Anthony going to start cutting weight?
Anthony and Pinheiro don't get Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Sorry, fellas.
Evan also.
Yeah, Evan definitely doesn't get Thanksgiving. That's no offense, buddy, but no Thanksgiving for you. Only veggies.
And you want to be in really good position, right, for collegiate duels because you want to be able to face off against Penn State. Mm-hmm. Again, another opportunity at a top team.
Yep.
But I don't know. I'm very curious and excited to see what changes are made just because, like you said, it's tough to walk out of watching Aiden Riggins lose the way he did to Patrick Kennedy and feel positive.
Yep.
So we'll leave it at that. Other thoughts about the lineup?
I don't think so. I was just trying to, it's like, what else could I interpret Kevin Dresser's thing of these are the three guys that we're going to insert into the lineup? It's like, I don't think he would straight up replace Pinheiro with Cody. Like, I don't think that makes any sense.
No.
So I think everyone's just going to be dropping a weight and you go from there.
Well, especially when you just competed against number 2, right? Mm-hmm. You can't afford to lose anyone, especially not a Pinheiro Johnson.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can afford to play swap or whatever you want to call it with the top guys on your team.
Yeah. I don't think so either. But it's like, I was just trying to figure out, like, if he's saying that, what are the other options? I think that's the only other one that made sense. And I don't think it actually makes sense. So I think everyone just has to bump down a weight. And then you insert Cody and Pinheiro's spot at 157.
I think the only one that will be interesting is 125.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Agreed.
because we haven't seen Kyson in a long time. It's his senior season. We know he can be really good, but again, he hasn't wrestled in a long time.
Yeah. And it was a
So-
long time since he wrestled as good as we've seen him be able to.
Yeah,
which was against what's his face from Wisconsin and Humboldt.
Oh gosh, I can't remember.
Me either. But he was a top guy, and he wrestled really well.
And then he struggled the rest of the way
whole rest of the year.
until he got pulled. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like I said, 125 is probably the one that'll be the most interesting to see who gets it. But I would be shocked if that's not what Dresser's thinking.
Yeah.
So, but like we said, December is a month of trial and error. They'll have the Cliff Keen Invitational. Oh gosh, let me pull that up real quick. So they'll go to Vegas for the Cliff Keen Las Vegas Invitational, which they won last year, which was huge. That will take place December 6th through the 7th. And then after that, they'll have Big 12. Oh, thank you, Aiden. Aiden's got the schedule up for those watching the feed. North Dakota State Big 12 competition in Humboldt. Head back to Dresser's hometown. And then Collegiate Duels is in Nashville, Tennessee. And they'll have, I don't have the exact brackets, but basically it's Lock Haven, North Carolina, Ohio State. And then they'll have a chance. From the way the brackets were released, they can end up wrestling against Penn State again,
Yep.
which is what you want.
Yes, it is.
And then after that, Collegiate Duels is December 21st. And then from there, they'll have a decent break for Christmas. And then January 8th, we hit the ground running. So in December, I think you learn a lot about programs because they're all at all these different tournaments. And then we'll sneak in NDSU in there, which is that the one with all the former Hawkeyes?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Or
SDSU.
is that
SDSU
Okay.
does.
I
Yep,
always get them
sorry.
confused.
Yeah.
So never mind. So it'll be a really big test. Dresser obviously walked out of there very fired up. He looked very, he makes me think of the LeBron James meme, when he's like looking down when he was with the Heat. That's what I think of when I want to think of Dresser that day. That's what he looked like. So I think he's very determined to figure out what's the best look for this team because, like we said, Saturday really wasn't it. So,
Nope.
but I'm excited. It's still going to be a good season. It's still really early.
Super early.
That's the only unfortunate part is it's really good because you get to learn a lot about Iowa State, but then it kind of sucks because if they wrestled Iowa at a different time, it would be different. But neither here nor there, right?
No. We don't know if the lineup would be different. We don't necessarily know that the result will be different.
Right. But all in all, it's still gonna be a really good season. I'm excited to see how things change up, what team shows up in January. But let's get through December and see what we learn about the Cyclones.
That's right.
Ben, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just excited to see who rolls out to Cliff Keen, what the lineup looks like there. If guys are already cutting down or if they're going to give them a month to cut down and then they get inserted in the lineup in January. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I mean, it looks like rankings wise, nothing really moved much.
Which makes sense.
So
I think every match kind of went as expected.
Yep.
So,
well, a lot of season left. We literally just started and we already know a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. But
we know a lot and you're going to learn a lot more.
Yeah. We won't talk to the team this week. And what's next week? We won't talk to him next week, will we?
Cliff Keen?
Potentially.
We might.
Well, as always, we'll be keeping you guys updated at all season, and we'll do our best to navigate them while they're on the road for the month of December. I will be in Humboldt, so we'll have that. A lot of good stuff, a lot of fun stuff coming. So can't wait to see what the Cyclone lineup looks like here in like a week and a half. But as always, guys, thank you so much for listening. We will be back. And as always, shout out to Fareway, our fearless and committed sponsor. Gosh, since the beginning, they've been with us. So do all your holiday shopping for your Thanksgiving feast, those last minute things. Go grab them before they close for the holiday. And yeah, shout out to Fareway. That's where we shop. They don't, that's where I love to go, honestly. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We shall return.